I want to talk about a breaking news story. Just in the last few hours, the Department of Justice has indicted a Democratic congressional candidate, Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. She's running in Illinois. She is a Gen Z candidate for Congress, and she was indicted over what she supposedly did at ICE protests. And also today, at pretty much the exact same time, the Department of Justice put two federal prosecutors on leave after they described January 6th as a mob of rioters in a memo that they sent out. This is such a good example, a day like today, of this rising authoritarianism we see and how our federal government is set up so much differently than it ever has been. Remember Project 2025? The whole idea behind Project 2025 is unitary executive theory, that the Department of Justice, the CDC, the FBI, the SEC, the EPA, all these three-letter agencies should actually be fully controlled by the President of the United States. That's how the Constitution intends it to be. For all of modern American history before, January of this year when Donald Trump was inaugurated, these three-letter agencies were largely independent from the president. They were shielded from political pressure day to day. Because when the DOJ needed to go after, let's say, corrupt officials, they didn't want to feel like there was potentially, because when the DOJ, for example, needed to go after corrupt political officials, or just because when the DOJ, for example, needs to do its job and their job leads them to investigating corrupt political officials, we want them to be able to do their job shielded from political pressure. We don't want them to fear like political retribution, being fired by the President of the United States. The same goes for the SEC or the CDC when they're focused on our abortion drugs, safe and effective. We want them to be focused on that for the American people and not think about how will my decision here about if abortion drugs are safe and effective affect me politically. Will the president be mad? Because when all these agencies and the people who work at them have to think day to day about the political ramifications of the decisions they're making, it makes all of us less safe, all of us less healthy. And these agencies that are key to our way of life start to crumble. Let's get into these news stories. First, I want to play this video from Kat herself, the Gen Z woman running for Congress in Illinois, her response to being indicted this morning. Take a listen.
Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois, and the Department of Justice is charging 6 people, including myself, with federal crimes for exercising our First Amendment rights near ICE's Broadview Processing Center. This is a political prosecution and a gross attempt to silence dissent, a right protected under the First Amendment. This case is a major push by the Trump administration to criminalize protest and punish anyone who speaks out against them. That's why I'm going to fight these unjust charges, but I need your help to do it. As I and others have exercised our First Amendment rights, ICE has hit, dragged, thrown, shot with pepper balls, and tear gassed hundreds of protesters, simply because we had the gall to say that masked men coming into our communities, abducting our neighbors, and terrorizing us cannot be our new normal. And because Chicago doesn't back down from bullies in masks who tear gas our neighborhoods, this administration has resorted to weaponizing the federal justice system to scare us into silence. But we're not going to be silent. The Trump administration wants you to be afraid of speaking out against it, and there are plenty of reasons to be afraid right now, but we have to overcome that fear. This case targets our rights to protest, speak freely, and associate with anyone who disagrees with the government. And while we have seen the unhinged and unlawful tactics this administration has used against the American public, it's important to remember they're doing this because they are scared. They are wrong. And they know they are on the wrong side of history. We cannot diminish ourselves in the face of these attacks. That's why we have to unite and stand up for humanity, our rights, and everyone terrorized by Trump's lawless secret police. You'll be hearing regular updates directly from me about this case and how we can use our constitutional rights to resist authoritarianism. And as scary as all of this is, I have spent my career fighting America's backslide into fascism. I'm not going to stop now, and I hope you won't either.
I think that was really well said from Kat. And I want to take a second to zoom out because I think it's really easy to get bogged down in this constant talk with the other side of the aisle of, oh, well, look at this video. She did this, or they did this, or ICE protesters did this, or this is why ICE made this decision. But again, zooming out for a second, We're talking about a leader in Donald Trump who is sending ICE agents, the National Guard, to states against the request of these states, against the request of the citizens in those states, and is constantly agitating and pushing, saying, oh, we're waging war, posting memes on the internet of, for example, Chicago burning down, and him saying, I'm here to save the day. I'm actually waging war against Chicago. But don't worry, I'm here and I'm sending in my little goons. I mean, that's dystopian as hell. That is not at all what a leader should be doing. So at the bare minimum, we should all be able to agree, even if at this point you're a Trump supporter, that this is not how you lead. This is crazy stuff. Let's read a little bit about this. A special federal grand jury has indicted Democratic congressional candidate Kat Abu-Ghazaleh alongside other protesters who allegedly blocked vehicles outside a federal immigration facility in Broadview, Illinois. The indictment, which was filed October 23rd, alleges that Abu-Ghazaleh physically hindered and impeded an agent who was, quote, forced to drive at an extremely slow rate of speed to avoid injuring any of the conspirators. Abu-Ghazaleh was charged alongside 5 other people, including 2 other political candidates. She faces 1 count of conspiracy along with 1 charge alleging that she, quote, forcibly impeded, intimidated, and interfered with an officer. The indictment alleges that the group conspired with one another and others, known and unknown, to prevent by force, intimidation, and threat Agent A United States law enforcement officer, from discharging the duties of his office and to injure him in his person or property on account of his lawful discharge of the duties of his office and while engaged in the lawful discharge thereof, and to injure his property so as to interrupt, hinder, and impede him in the discharge of his official duties. I will keep you updated on this story, but if you need evidence of this hyper-politicization of the executive branch, the DOJ, this unitary executive theory, Project 2025 in real time. Also today, the Department of Justice puts 2 federal prosecutors on leave after they described a, quote, mob of rioters on January 6th. The language was used in a sentencing memo for Taylor Taranto, a January 6th defendant who was separately convicted of weapons charges after he showed up near Barack Obama's home in 2023. Prosecutors Carlos Valdivia and Samuel White used the phrase in a sentencing memo filed Tuesday in the case of Taylor, a MAGA enthusiast who prosecutors say stormed the Capitol on January 6th and was involved in a, quote, scuffle with police officers trying to force the mob out of the building. While Trump pardoned him and a bunch of other rioters, obviously, it didn't cover his actions in 2023 when prosecutors said he perpetrated a bomb hoax and then showed up to former President Barack Obama's neighborhood with weapons and ammo in his van. He was convicted in May of, quote, illegally carrying 2 firearms without a license, unlawfully possessing ammunition, and false information and hoaxes. In describing his background, prosecutors wrote in the memo that thousands of people comprising a mob of rioters attacked the U.S. Capitol while a joint session of Congress met to certify the results of the 2020 presidential election, and that he was accused of participating in the riot in Washington, D.C. by entering the U.S. Capitol building. And they added that he, quote, promoted conspiracy theories about the events of January 6th, 2021. Those 2 prosecutors today, after filing this sentencing memo, placed on leave. And I just checked right before I started recording this video. And that memo has been taken off the docket by the DOJ. So it's gone now. I can't even see it. Hopefully someone screenshotted it. Wow. And that's stunning stuff. It's scary. This is not how our Constitution was intended to be. It was not intended for the president to have sole control over all of these executive branches. It makes the executive branch far too large and very powerful. Donald Trump is currently wielding the Department of Justice, the EPA, the CDC, the SEC, wielding them as political tools to do whatever he wants, whatever is politically advantageous to him. It's helping him sell pardons to the highest bidders. It's helping him clear SEC lawsuits that have been filed in the past for individuals in the cryptocurrency world who donate to Trump. Hey, I just donated a bunch of money to your cryptocurrency, sir. Do you think you could give a call down to the SEC and make sure that my lawsuits go away? I might have scammed some people in the past. It's causing our judicial system to crumble. And meanwhile, while all of this is happening, there's a third branch of government that's supposed to be doing something to keep the president in check. But Congress is, null and void. They don't do anything. Donald Trump has successfully captured the Republican Party, and they're all just little MAGA minions who stand for nothing. Before we end off here, Donald Trump today is the most unpopular he has ever been. His approval rating, the new YouGov poll this morning, he's underwater 19 points, which is more unpopular than he ever was in his first term. If we take a look here, this is The Economist that have him at roughly minus 18 points. We see inflation and prices. He's down almost 35 points. Jobs in the economy, 20 points. Taxes and spending, 20 points. Immigration, 10 points. National security, disapproved by 3 or 4 points. That's his best issue. And that's important to note because he's feeling the pressure. He's feeling the pressure moving up toward the midterms. I assume things are going to get worse. That's why it's really important that we continue to use our voices. Americans continue to be out on the street screaming and yelling about the unconstitutional, authoritarian things we are seeing from this administration. We will get through this time, I promise. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments down below. I appreciate you watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. It goes such a long way. And I will see you in the next one.